Hey guys, welcome to Flav Oriana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Oriana, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright guys, so let's get to this. Marvin Vettori. Marvin Vettori had a big win. Big win this past Saturday. Ended up fighting the Joker, Jack Hermansson. So I'm going to tell you guys how this all started off. Jack Hermansson was originally supposed to fight Darren Till. Darren Till pulled out because of an injury. Then he was supposed to fight Kevin Holland. But before he was supposed to fight Kevin Holland, Hermansson had said in an interview that he had 5 people passed up on him that did not want to fight him. I was very interested. He did not want to reveal the T as for who were those 5 fighters that said no to him. But Kevin Holland was one of those people that stepped up and said, I'll fight you. Sure, why not? Because Kevin Holland is known for taking short notice fights. And for him to fight Jack Hermansson, who's ranked number 4 on a main event on an ESPN fight card, that's gonna be a lot more exposure. So Kevin Holland takes a fight. Nope, not so fast. Gets COVID. Who steps in for the rescue? Marvin Vettori. Stylistically, I said in a previous recording, that Vettori and Hermansson was going to be a way better stylistically match as opposed to Holland and Hermansson. So Vettori and Hermansson fight, goes the distance, 5 rounds, but it was very one-sided. Hermansson only won the 3rd round. Vettori won rounds 1, 2, 4, and 5. Vettori dropped Hermansson. I thought the fight was going to be over in the 1st round when he dropped him. He hit him with a hard right hook. Sent him to the floor, but Hermansson has a good chin, man. He has a very, very good chin. I mean, he was all beaten up and cut, but same thing with Vettori. But I think Vettori, Hermansson got beaten up pretty bad, but Vettori, he was cut up. But I don't know, does Hermansson have long nails or something like that? Because you saw like huge scratch marks on Vettori's neck, especially on the right side. It really made me question. It's like this guy needs to cut his nails or something like that. But anyways, so what's next for Marvin Vettori? What's next for him? He called out Paulo Costa. That's a big name right there. Vettori versus Costa is huge. That would be a fight on a pay-per-view instantly. I don't think that fight should be on a main event. You want to broadcast both those fighters to the world for everybody to see on pay-per-view to see how they both fight. But I don't think that's going to happen for Vettori. It really depends on what happens with Israel Adesanya. Because if Israel Adesanya ends up fighting Robert Whittaker and not Jan Blachowicz, then yes, I see Vettori fighting Paulo Costa. But if I see Jan Blachowicz and Israel Adesanya fighting each other for the 205 belt, then there's only one option. You're gonna have to see Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa, and then that leaves a lot of options for Marvin Vettori. Now, that could be a good thing, that could be a bad thing. I would say, if that option that I just presented happens, Costa versus Whittaker, that probably is going to mean that Vettori's going to need to fight maybe like 2 more times just to get a title shot, which is fine. So who did he have to fight? Well, his next fight, if that happens, is most likely going to end up happening to be Derek Brunson. And here's why. Derek Brunson comes off a big victory over knocking out Edmund Shabazian. I don't see the UFC running back Darren Till. I don't see the UFC having Darren Till fight Marvin Vettori. I mean, they could, but I think it's better off for Hermansson to fight Darren Till because we want to see how that happens, especially with Hermansson going to be dropping out of the top 5. So you're going to have Darren Till and Hermansson in the top 10 fighting one another. That's going to be good for the rankings. But Brunson and Vettori, that should be a good fight. But my dark horse pick, don't be surprised, guys, if you guys see Marvin Vettori versus Kevin Holland. That only happens if Kevin Holland beats Jacare Souza, and that step needs to go down first. So, by the way, both those fighters are fighting this Saturday. So yeah, I mean, there's plenty of options. Marvin Vettori is one step closer to getting a title shot. He wants to fight Adesanya. He's been calling him out every time he gets a chance to. Always tries to bring up the fact that he, had hurt Adesanya. I gotta say, the only two fighters that has actually challenged Adesanya the way that Adesanya has to get it to a different gear was Kelvin Gastelum and Marvin Vettori. Outside of that, nobody has really challenged Israel Adesanya. But we'll see what happens with Marvin Vettori. It was a huge victory. It's gonna be, he's most likely gonna be in the top 5. If he is in the top 5, becomes the first Italian-born fighter to ever hit the top 5 in any weight division. So this is huge. I mean, he's getting national exposure, deserves it. He has a great fighting style. It gravitates towards fans, whether they're casuals or hardcore. And the fact that he's mean, he trash talks a lot. I mean, it's only building up the hype for Marvin Vettori. As for Tony Ferguson, moving on. So Tony Ferguson is making his return. Last time he fought he ended up fighting Justin Gaethje. I think it was UFC 249. Yeah, UFC 249. It was the first pay-per-view from the pandemic, after the pandemic, I'm sorry. And Ferguson is fighting now, what's his name? Charles Oliveira. For Justin Gaethje, got beaten up. He got beaten up pretty bad, guys. He was really beaten up. Usually the way that Tony Ferguson, beats up his opponent, they're really violent. And back in May, the roles were reversed. You had Justin Gaethje applying all that pressure, all that violence that Tony Ferguson does to all his opponents, but Justin Gaethje just applied that violence towards Tony Ferguson. So Tony Ferguson was able to feel on what he does to his opponents. Looked pretty horrible. He's all beaten up. Was in the hospital, and now we have Ferguson fighting Charles Oliveira, which is huge because you know what, Ferguson cannot afford a loss. He can't afford a second straight loss because of the fact that he is officially now in a crossroads. He loses one more time, he is going to be in danger of not getting any type of title shot in the near future because 155 is extremely stacked. It is not like the 125 pound division where it's only about 2 or 3 people that are always going to be in contention for the belt. No, you have Conor McGregor in 155, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Michael Chandler, you name it. You also have Dan Hooker too, Charles Oliveira, like I just mentioned. It is extremely stacked. Ferguson cannot lose. He has to win the fight. It doesn't matter if it's by knockout, decision, or submission. He has to win. He loses, he's going to be falling into closer towards the ending of the top 10. And Oliveira is going to climb towards the top 5. But stylistically, I love this matchup. Oliveira is a submission machine. This guy works great on the ground. He's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Tony Ferguson can counter all of Charles Oliveira's moves. If the fight is on the ground, I'm going to lean more towards Charles Oliveira. If the fight is standing up, believe me, guys, Tony Ferguson will try to piece up Oliveira. But this should honestly go all 3 rounds. I wouldn't be surprised. But if it ends, it's most likely going to end by a knockout. It's not going to end by submission. I favor Tony Ferguson winning this fight in the 3rd round by a TKO. And he needs this win very, very badly. This guy's a huge drawing. And if he wins, I mean, he's most likely going to end up fighting for the belt. He ends up fighting for the belt, or maybe does a rematch with Justin Gaethje. Oliveira wins. I mean, now there's so many options at his disposal. Can fight a Michael Chandler. He could fight a Justin Gaethje or Dustin Poirier. You name it. As for the main event for UFC 256, you have Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. This is going to be the quickest turnaround in UFC history for a champion to fight this quick. It's going to be 3 weeks apart from the time that Figueiredo has fought, made his previous title defense to now this one. So it's going to be pretty amazing to see how is Deiveson Figueiredo's weight cut going to be. He has struggled in the past to cut down weight. I know he says that ever since he won the title, he invested so much money into his nutrition that he's very, very strict on his diet. He takes care of his body. Is he going to make championship weight? Is he going to miss it? Who knows? Brandon Moreno, same thing. Is he going to be able to make weight? There's so many things at this disposal. It's just a lot of question marks. The main question mark is for Deiveson Figueiredo. He's missed weight before. He missed weight back in February when he was supposed to fight Benavidez. They took the fight anyways, and Figueiredo ended up winning. Figueiredo did not walk out with the title because he missed weight. The stipulation was Benavidez wins, he gets the belt. Figueiredo wins, the title remains vacant. But yeah, it's very, very interesting. I think that this is going to come down to, can Brandon Moreno handle a lot of shots to the chin? How much power is he going to be able to endure before his body, breaks down? And can Brandon Moreno find any openings while they're fighting on the floor? Is he able to finally apply the twister? He had a chance to apply that twister on Brandon Royval last month, but he failed. He needs to apply that twister correctly. And he has to make sure that he can't start panicking, if Figueiredo gets him in a guillotine. He has to find out on how to get out of it, push out of it, and find a different opening. But I got Figueiredo winning the main event in 3 rounds by knockout. I think Brandon Moreno's chin does not hold up with Figueiredo's power. Figueiredo has immense power. For 125, this guy punches as if he was like a 145er. It honestly should be really crazy to see, who ends up winning on Saturday. Figueiredo wins. He becomes 4-0. My opinion, he becomes Fighter of the Year. Brandon Moreno wins. Well, most likely going to see a rematch between Figueiredo and Moreno. But if I'm the UFC, me personally, I want to see Figueiredo win. You got a star in the making of him. The only thing that he doesn't know how to do, doesn't know how to speak English. If he knew how to speak English, he'd be a bigger star. And then lastly, guys, look, if you heard that press conference this past Saturday, you ended up hearing that Dana White said that fighters are going to be cut. Now, I just saw, online that who ended up getting cut. Yoel Romero got cut, which we all knew, but Rachel Ostovich was one of the newer fighters that, Rachel Ostovich was part of that update just recently that just got cut right now. Not a surprise. She was like 4-6 on her record. Has more losses than wins. I really don't think Rachel Ostovich should be fighting. I think that she has other ventures that she's more interested upon. So she should most likely be focusing on that. But for Yoel Romero to be released, it was pretty shocking. That's a big name right there. Big draw. I don't understand why the UFC released him, this late, a couple weeks before Christmas. If they were going to release him, they should have just released him after he lost Izzy or anywhere in between then. But they waited so long. He fought Izzy back in March, so I don't know. It's a lot of questions as for that. But for Dana White to say 60 fighters are going to be released, we kind of saw this coming. The economy is not in the greatest stem, and the UFC needs to do cutbacks to make sure that then the company is not losing an outstanding amount of money. That's why the Dana White Contender Series is here. Dana White is not going to be giving these guys like crazy money. So these Dana White Contender Series fighters, they're going to have to do what like Joaquin Buckley does, get these $50,000 bonuses, these fight of the nights, these knockouts, performances of the night, you name it. The Dana White is trying to get as much fighters as he can for a cheap price, as opposed to having to pay these fighters, 6-figure contracts, 7-figure contracts, you name it. But we all saw this coming, but it's unfortunate. And hopefully nobody big, gets cut. It's gonna happen, but hopefully not like a huge draw. All right, guys. But until then, guys, look, this covers everything on Flav Oriana's MMA show. Marvin Vettori with the big win. Tony Ferguson desperately needs to win on Saturday. Deiveson Figueiredo, is he going to be able to retain his title? Is he going to make weight? And Yoel Romero ends up getting released by the UFC. All right, guys. Until then, guys, I'll talk to you guys later, and you guys have a good one. Peace, guys.